All right, guys, welcome to our last review, chapters 11 and 12, Mixology and the impact of alcohol on health. Let's get into it. Okay, mixology definitions. What is mixology? Well, it's the study of beverages, particularly spirits, and the art of preparing mixed drinks and cocktails. Who wants to tell me what's the difference between a mixologist and a bartender?
Is it the mustache?
It is. It's a sense of entitlement. It's the yeah, I like it. So a mixologist will emphasize classic recipes, craft cocktails, unique fresh ingredients, and a high level of skill. It's a choice whether you want to call yourself a mixologist or a bartender. All up to you, but they're really, it's kind of frou-frou anyway, right? Okay, mixology. Let's talk about the history of mixology. So, and I know there's not that many on the call, but I did want to throw out some questions just to kind of get it going. So, if we're talking about the 17th and 18th century, kind of the birth, I mean, there were cocktails, I guess we could call them cocktails, wine and beer concoctions as far back as 7000 BCE. We talked about that with aromatized wines and, aromatized what basically else, wines basically throwing things as preservatives, right? But when we really talk about cocktails, it's a more of a modern approach, and they really start coming around in the 1700s, 1800s. So, what do you guys think the main spirit would be as a base from those earliest versions?
Gin?
Could have been gin, yep. But a lot of the ones that there were gin cocktails for sure. Yeah. So that's a right answer. But the one I'm looking for was, remember, the biggest kind of spirit worldwide?
Baijiu.
Well, for that time period would have been rum.
Oh,
1600s, 1700s, 1800s. Remember, it's kind of everywhere, right? But those are both true because there probably were Baijiu cocktails going on, with Baijiu bases, and there definitely were gin cocktails. But the first really popular rum cocktails that we learn about are rum-based cocktails, right? So lots of rum in Great Britain and the colonies, and they started making rum punches and shrubs and sangarees. All these are kind of synonymous with that, right? And I don't know why. I'm kind of was mentioning this in the Kahoot. They're really big on these old-timey 17th, 18th century first cocktails. They want you to know them. What we can do as an exercise after this recording is we can go through the flashcards and see, we can do it for this, and there's like 5 or 6 of these. They want you to know what's in a shrub, what's in a sangaree, etc., etc. Okay. The American Revolution, we banned British rum, creates a local whiskey distillation, and the incorporation of local whiskey into cocktails. And one of those reasons is those cocktails or the whiskey that we were first creating or first distilling, not so good, right? Kind of reminds me of when we were talking about prohibition in the early 20th century, why we liked gin and why we could hide. We were making very bad bathtub gin. So we were having to flavor it. We were having to create cocktails with it to really cover up the terrible gin we were making. Well, that's kind of the case when we first started with whiskey here, because you don't have that expertise yet, right? Um, or there wasn't consistency, right? So, bartenders were going to have to get creative and make something palatable, right? Okay, one of the first big cocktails was a Sazerac created in New Orleans, and it was served in a cocktail glass. Now, what's special etymologically? We talked about this. Someone tell me what word could also be related to this word, cocktail? We think the word cocktail actually comes from this word cocktail. And here's a picture of one up here on the right. It's called it's basically an egg-shaped cup, a cocktail. So the conventional wisdom is cocktail came from this cup, right? The name of this cup. All right. Later on, The mint julep is created with brandy, right? That was a little highbrow, little expensive brandy at that point. We're, importing brandy. So what did we do? We subbed in something else for brandy. What would that have been?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Whiskey, right? Local whiskey, a little bit cheaper. It doesn't have to, travel across the ocean. So the mint julep, as we know it today, is with bourbon, right? In 1862, one of the first published books on bartending, Professor Jerry Thomas writes The Bartender's Guide. Very, very important. And then we see our first definition of cocktail a little bit later, which was a stimulating liquor composed of spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. The very first definition. Any questions thus far? One of the coolest things about the U.S., I get very proud to be an American, is that we kind of invented the cocktail, right? And if you travel abroad, which I know many of you had, you see their cocktail culture was basically influenced by ours. Outside of a couple local ones, we started the trend a little bit. It's kind of cool. And I would say the ancestral home of all of that in the U.S. would be New Orleans, right? All right, let's talk a little bit more about cocktails versus mixed drinks. Does anyone want to take a stab at what's the difference between these two? I'll take the definition of a mixed drink first. It's basically a soda or something and a base spirit, like two, and usually in a highball, right? So usually about two things mixed together. Why would a cocktail be different or special?
It could have bitters, egg whites, and it's also served with a stem
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. So the kind of way to think about it, cocktails tend to be in shorter tumblers or whatnot, right? Shorter glasses, and it's mixing two or more things together to create a new flavor greater than the sum of its parts. If you're just making a mixed drink, it's like a Jack and Coke. Okay, you made a Jack and Coke. That's great. But with a cocktail, the idea is adding several ingredients to create this new creation, right? You can cocktails are normally stirred or shaken with ice, served in rocks glasses, tumblers, or stemmed glasses, right? Versus a mixed drink, tall boys present in a glass like a highball, combine liquor with a mixer. A little bit easier, no shade to it. One other little thing I'll say about bartenders is they were very important, especially in the 1800s, especially the 1800s, because they had access to ice, right, at the saloon. And most people at that time you don't have you don't have a freezer at home, right? You don't have an ice maker in your fridge because there is no fridge. So having a drink with ice was a big deal. They had to bring it down in wagons or on trains from the north, right? From Canada. So to have ice at your bar was kind of a big deal, right? So that's why they became kind of artists and actually and today we're really big on different shapes of ices and this particular ice for drinks. Well, that's a very old tradition going back to these bartenders chipping away ice from the big slab, right? And putting the correct ice in the correct cocktail back in the day. So it's kind of cool. That's why they became a little bit more important. Let's talk about some of the high quality ingredients for the bar. We don't need to go through all of this, but do know if you have smaller ice cubes in your drink, it will melt quicker, right? Garnishes will add eye appeal. Oh, this is a question, so you need to know this one. They want you to know how long juices will last behind a bar. So orange juice is good for 4 hours. Lime, lemon, and grapefruit is 12 hours, but I want someone that has their book open to double check this because we've heard this question worded differently. Because I think it says 12 to 24. Is anyone looking at their book? And I'll keep going while someone looks it up. Infusions are a spirit that's been imparted with a specific flavor via osmosis and dissolution. That was the tequila example was, I can't remember what we said in the Kahoot. We were macerating with something, right? You threw something in there, let it hang out. Osmosis, you're infusing. Mixers, simple syrup. Can anyone tell me what a 1-to-1 versus a 2-to-1 is? So I can just tell you, has anyone made simple syrup at home? Really, really easy, right? It's the easiest thing I've ever made. You put, if you're making a 1-to-1, you would put equal parts sugar and water in a pan, and you reduce it, right? And then you got simple syrup. Well, a 2-to-1 is more popular in Britain, where they'll do 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. So it's ends up being more concentrated sugar, right? So their simple syrup is a little bit sweeter than ours, maybe double. Then compound syrups, grenadine, orgeat, falernum, lime cordial, ginger syrup, bitters, and tinctures. All right. We don't need to go over all of this. You should probably know what most of these are: a jigger, a Boston metal shaker, Hawthorne strainer, etc., etc. Okay, this is where a trove of questions come from, so it's really important that we kind of wrap our heads around these. The different mixing methods. So we'll start with the build, aka the pouring method, which is just mixing drinks on the rocks. Who can name an example of that? How about rum and coke? Tequila. Yeah, thank you, Georgia. Point to you. Tequila sunrise. It's literally just ice into a glass, pour spirits, and top off with a mixer and garnish. Easy cheesy, right? And some people make Bloody Marys like this, but don't remember that for our purposes because they've got that, and the official way is the roll. So don't think of Bloody Marys, even though I oftentimes you see them doing that, right? Let's talk about the stir. This is cocktails with 2 or more easily blended ingredients, chilled but no ice. So what would be an example of that?
Manhattan.
Manhattan, yeah. Martinis, right? Martinis can either be shaken or stirred, right? But if you prefer it stirred, what you basically do is chill a glass. So you put some ice cubes in a glass, place ice to a mixing glass, pour base into a mixing glass, and add spirit. Stir for 20 to 60 seconds. Remove ice from a chill glass, and then Hawthorne strain it into a serving glass. So you're just getting it real cold by stirring it, right? But then it's served up cold. Okay, what else we got here? We got the shake. So that's cocktails or mixed drinks with sugar, cream, or things that do not readily mix with spirits. And it can create cocktails lighter than the stir method. And the most important thing here, it adds water and bubbles for airy texture. I like my martinis shaken because I like the little bubbles it gets, right? My margaritas too. I like to shake them. It gets a little bit cute little bubbles. I like all those little bubbles. It makes it a little airy, right? Examples would be a whiskey sour or martini. A lot of the sours are done this way, right? So ice into a mixing glass, add spirits, mixtures, base ingredients, cover Boston mixing glass, create a vacuum, shake it, and serve through a Hawthorne strainer. The roll. So this is for mixed drinks or cocktails that call for thick juices or pureed fruit. It's like a shake method, but there's no foam. Bloody Mary would be an example there. But the big difference is you're not shaking it hard. You're just gently rolling it, right? Gently rolling it. Just letting everything kind of mesh together. Then we got a dry shake, and the Kahoot question, for those of you just listening in and missed the Kahoot question, was which one of these cocktails would you use a dry shake on? And the answer was Peruvian Pisco Sour, which I love that. That's a depth of knowledge question. And those of us on this call now, why did we use that, the dry shake, for the Peruvian Pisco Sour?
Because it has egg.
It has egg, right? And when you're making cocktails with egg white or cream, sometimes you want to shake without ice. You already are going to get the frothy, foamy character. So that's a perfect CSS question. You got to remember this Peruvian Pisco Sour from a couple chapters ago, and then remember that it would need a dry shake. Then we got the blend. which is using electric blenders, and think about ice cream based drinks, right? Frozen margaritas would be one of these. It's not ice cream, but ice or ice cream. Another one would be like a brandy Alexander. Okay, the other way we separate these guys is by the 12 families, 12 drink families, kind of like a mafia thing, right? So we got, these are another several ways that they could phrase all these and ask you questions is, what is liquor on ice? Well, it's just like it sounds. It's scotch on the rocks, right? It's a frappe. Does anyone know what a frappe is? What's the difference between that? What is a frappe? It's like really, really chiseled ice, right? Very, very fine ice. And then you're pouring liquor over it, and guess what? That ice is going to melt a little bit quicker, and we'll add a little more water to it. We'll cut it with water a little bit eventually. 2 liquor drinks. It's a jigger of a spirit with smaller amount of liqueur, like a Black Russian or a Rusty Nail. And then you got the martini family, right? It's quintessentially American. It's gin and vermouth in general, right? General. But what other drink did we say? What other cocktail falls into this martini family? Was the Manhattan. Also Old Fashioned, Sazerac, Rob Roy. And I think that's because of vermouth and maybe that they were all being kind of created at this around the same time. I think it's just mainly this vermouth plus spirit thing puts it into the martini family. Sours, maybe my favorite category. It's a liquor with sour mix, lime juice, or lemon juice, right? Like a margarita, daiquiri, gimlet, pisco sour, or whiskey sour. We're doing a lot of shaking and straining for these. And then we've got shooters. So one or more spirits or liqueur served in a shot glass. Easy enough, right? Who's got an example of that? The one we always took in Athens back in my day was the lemon drop, right? The lemon drop, a B-52, mudslide, etc., etc. And then you have highballs, which are drinks made with carbonated mixers, waters, or juices, served tall in a highball glass, aka a mixed drink, basically. Jack and Ginger, rum and coke, 7 and 7, tequila sunrise, Bloody Mary, they put over here as well. Oh, and I don't know ask the question here, but there are 2 theories on the origin of the name highballs, which is back in the days of the train, when the train was having its heyday, once that locomotive engine got up to speed, the ball showing the boiler pressure at the highest time, once it got up, it said, okay, now it's kind of like getting to 10,000 feet, and the air was, okay, we can start cabin service. It's kind of like that. Once the ball got up, I said, okay, we can, we're safe, we're moving now. Let's start serving drinks. So highball is one of them. There was another story too. Don't know that they'll ask you about them, but it's just kind of cool. And then we have tropical drinks. And you might need to know Victor Bergeron of Trader Vic's. Trader Vic's, Victor, starts a tropical drink craze in the 1930s and creates a Mai Tai, which in Tahitian means the best, and creates pina colada. And then Don the Beachcomber joins to create the tiki bar craze. Okay. This could be a question. This is a question we've seen before. What does the Hindi word panch mean? P-A-N-C-H.
5.
5. That's right, Georgia. 5. That's because this cocktail they were making had 5 ingredients: alcohol, water, sugar, lemon, and tea or spices, right? And that's where we get the word punch, I believe, was from the Hindi panch. Another one to know is wassails. It's a brandy or wine-based punch. Some other, really old words, old cocktails that they want you to know. very popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. And other drinks that would fall into this 11th family category would be mimosas, champagne cocktails, stuff with wine plus something else, kir, right? And then we got cream-based drinks, which are rich, smooth, and sweet, like the grasshopper, brandy Alexander, or white Russian. We're either going to shake or blend. I lied about that one being the 11th because we have a couple more here. We've got frozen drinks. Yeah, just use a blender, right? Like a frozen margarita. International coffees. Irish coffee is the most famous of these. And a pousse cafe. This one's kind of interesting. It's layering drinks made by floating ingredients on top of one another. So you have to do the most viscous ones on the bottom, right? And so the idea, pousse cafe means push the coffee. So the heaviest stuff's at the bottom to the lightest at the top, right? And so there's a whole art of doing that. And I believe an angel's kiss, we said, is a good example of that. So that's that. That is chapter 11. See, we did that in no time.
I think I have a question.
Sure.
Why would the wines and punches be considered one family? Because the punches are 5 ingredients, but a wine-based cocktail like a mimosa is 2. So would they say that a mimosa, like why would it fall under both of those together?
So there's just like 2 ways. There's 2 main ways of organizing them, right? They just put wines and punches together for the 12 families.
Okay. But a mimosa wouldn't be under the punch family.
It would be a mimosa is a wine-based cocktail, I think.
But would it be under the wine and punch family?
Yes.
Interesting.
In the book, they put them together, so if they were to ask you that, that's where they belong.
Even though it's not 5 ingredients?
Correct. So I think just because, punch doesn't have to have 5 ingredients. It's just the origin of that word.
Okay. That's
So the word means 5, but you could have a punch that's just rum and one other thing if you want. But because the base is a little bit different, I think they put these 2 together because they're not spirits. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That they're a wine as a base. Well, shoot, and the punches are going to have usually going to have rum or something, but I don't know. I don't really know why they group them together,
Okay.
to be honest with you. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me write that down. We'll figure out why did they put them together as a 12th family.
Thank you.
So we'll look into that. Okay. That's it. That's chapter 11. Any other questions on that one? Welcome back, Scott.
Yeah, do you mind starting over?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm so sorry. I had some connectivity issues, and then my computer decided this class is optional, so I'm not coming. But here we go.
Your computer's finally rebelling against you. I like it.
You know it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I pray to the robots every day. Well, you're here for the most important chapter, Scott. You came in right in time because we get to chapter 12, the impact of alcohol on your health. You got a lot of slides here. There isn't any. Any questions on chapter 12? That's all we got for that one. That's it. Now, and the reason we don't cover any of that because we have never gotten a question in the bank on chapter 12. I think if we did, it would be something like how much alcohol can you process, digest in an hour, that type of thing. But we literally haven't seen anything of the sort on the test. But what I want to do, if you guys would like, is I'd like to go through the flashcards for chapters 11 and 12 to see that we covered everything. And if anyone needs to get off the call, that's also fine as well. But I thought it might be helpful to do this because it's not a lot. Here, let me do that. Does that sound good? We can just do it real quick. So I'm going to go, and also in case if you're watching this later, you can see how to get to everything. So I just logged into udiga.com for our Smyrna crew, and I'm going to go into human resources, learning and development resources. Nope, I lied. So used to going there. Human resources, product knowledge course portal, and then let's go into the big resource CSS, right? CSS course portal login and Trincaro videos. Lots of good stuff in here. But the big one we want to use is this one, the Society of Wine Educators course portal. I want to log us in. Y'all know my email address and my really gothy password, Hateful World. That was really cool as a 13-year-old. Let's go into my courses. And you'll see, once it loads, Spirit CSS program. And look at these brand new 2025 flashcards, hot off the presses. Let's get down here to chapter 11 and 12. Well, hold on. This thing always takes me, oh yeah, resume. I guess I have to hit. There we go. Before I do that, now you can scroll over. It's not the most intuitive thing ever. But here's chapter 11 and 12. I'm just going to restart it right here. Okay, and we're just going to go through them. Y'all yell them out if you know them. But author of the 1862 book, The Bartender's Guide or The Bon Vivant's Companion. We were just talking about this professor, Jerry Thomas, the professor, right? What's the relevance of the word cocktail?
The egg cup where you get the name cocktail?
Yes, that's it. The two-sided egg cup that was used to measure or serve the original Sazerac cocktail in New Orleans. And some people think it's the etymology of the word cocktail. What is a cocktail versus a mixed drink? We just talked about that, right? That a cocktail's the sum of everything creates a new flavor, right? Typically shaken or stirred, often served up. A mixed drink is a tall drink, typically served over ice, like a highball, right? What's a bounce? So this next series of 4 or 5 are a bunch of these old-timey rum punches and whatnot that they really want you to know. So what is a bounce?
Macerated fruit and George Washington.
That might be right. What if they just said macerated fruit, George Washington? A vintage cocktail typically made with a mixture of fruit, cooked with sugar and spices, macerated for several months with rye whiskey. Nice, so macerated, I like it. I guess George Washington liked the bounce. A cocktail fizz that includes a shaken egg white. What is that?
Silver fizz.
Silver fizz, silver fizz. That's exactly right. A cocktail fizz that includes an egg yolk. A golden fizz makes
Golden
sense.
fizz.
You saw that, you could just take a guess, right? A cocktail fizz that includes a whole egg.
Royal.
The royal fizz. You got these, Scott. A cocktail fizz that uses champagne in place of sparkling water.
I want to point out that I would have owned the Kahoot if my computer was working correctly. I know Craftsman doesn't blame his tools, but my tool was failing me.
I think you were doing one of those making some excuses, jumped off. So that one is a diamond fizz when you replace sparkling water with champagne. Classy. What's a sangaree? It's a wine-based punch. It includes spirits made with water, ice, and nutmeg. Georgia, maybe that's why they put wine and punches together, because some punches are wine-based. I don't know. I'm still gonna look into that. A vintage drink made with rum, spruce beer, and molasses. This was on the Kahoot.
It's Calabogus.
Calabogus, man. Yeah. A beverage made in colonial America using the liquid drawn from a batch of fruit macerated with sugar and vinegar. Would be a shrub. So that was more like a drink, it sounds like. And now the word shrub is a little different, the way that we use it these days, right? I think it's more like a flavoring, almost like a cordial. I might be wrong on that. Let me look it up. But I've heard that in a different context. Vintage cocktail based on eggs beaten with sugar, traditionally made by pouring the mixture back and forth between glasses. See, why would we need to know any of these? It's great. A flip. I guess you're flipping it back and forth, maybe you can think of it like that. A vintage cocktail made with cognac, orange liqueur, bitters, and lemon juice, garnished with a long loop of lemon peel and a sugared rim.
Hey, Connor, if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
and I was struggling with this earlier, and maybe you already talked about it while I was away. Is a flip a type of fizz, or is the only, or are they just both egg based, or sometimes egg based? Or I was having trouble determining where a fizz ends and a flip begins.
I really don't know. I'm going to ask that question.
Now,
It might just be,
a fizz has something sparkling added to it
yeah.
necessarily.
My
And
my original thought was, oh, this is just the old name for this type of, it's an old cocktail, they call it that, and then unrelated, they created there was other cocktails being made that started calling fizzes, but I don't know.
yeah, are there any reformed bartenders in the group that know the answer to that? No.
I don't know if I thought Jill was, but it sounds like she might just be listening in. So someone could also chime in on the big email if they know.
I worked at a beer and shot bar, so
Not not
I don't
making a
have
lot of
the answer
flips
to that
there.
question.
No flips or calaboguses, huh?
We called it a deer and a beer where it came from, a shot of Jaeger and a bottle of beer.
A tear and a beer, is that what you call it?
A deer and a beer.
Oh,
Sorry,
deer and a
Vincent.
beer. Okay, I like tear too. Tear and a beer. Yeah, we'll look at that. Yeah, and see the kind of history, or is it just a subset of that? Because I guess it doesn't. The fizz doesn't have anything to make it, or the flip doesn't have anything that would make it fizzy, right? Yeah.
Right. So, and I think I've just confused myself. They both have egg, yes,
Yep.
but one is carbonated and one is not.
Yeah. Maybe a flip does not have. I don't know what else. Yeah, we'll look into that
Sorry.
because I don't know what the base spirit is. They don't really tell us that or anything.
Yeah, it just both the book says they're both contain a spirit. Okay. They
Yeah.
both contain an egg, sure.
Like,
Flip has a whole raw egg, whereas fizzes can be various pieces or all of egg.
yeah. We'll look into that for the
Okay.
email.
Yeah, sorry about
No, you're good. Vintage cocktail made with cognac, orange liqueur, bitters, and lemon juice, garnished with a long loop of lemon peel and a sugared rim, is a crusta. So cognac crusta, orange liqueur crusta. I don't know how to remember that, but a crusta doesn't sound very appetizing. Hey, would you like a crusta? No, thank you. A vintage drink made with sweetened wine and lemon juice mixed with milk or cream and topped with whipped egg whites. That sounds okay. That's a syllabub. No, duh, a syllabub. Everyone should know that. Vintage drink made with fresh mint leaves muddled with sugar, shaken with a spirit, and poured over ice. Is a
Smash.
smash. Now that one's we still use, right? Like having a bourbon smash or something. A vintage cocktail originally produced with sherry in addition to wine, sugar, and fresh fruit is a cobbler. And a non-alcoholic pomegranate flavored syrup known for its bright red color.
Grenadine.
Grenadine. The way to remember this one, gang, is the French, they call pomegranates grenadines, right? I think are grenades, right? And so when they named that a grenade in wartime, they called it basically the French word they call them pomegranates, right? Like they're throwing pomegranates, so little grenades of the same shape. So that'll help you maybe remember that grenadine is shaped like a pomegranate, like it's known as a pomegranate because grenade comes from there, and they're, it's all. Does that make sense? Does that help us at all? Maybe not. Almond flavored syrup originally produced with almonds and barley.
Orgeat.
Yeah, orgeat. Yeah. Almond syrup, often flavored with lime, ginger, and cloves, thought to be from Barbados. That's falernum. Think tiki drinks for that one. Bar terminology, the final and lightest liquid ingredient sometimes added to a drink as the last step.
Float.
Yeah, a little floater, a float. Term to describe a drink that is shaken or stirred with ice to chill, then strained and served without ice. We say that it is served up, right? A mixer, water, or other beverage served on the side. A chaser, right? Or like a Coke back, pickleback, whatever you want to use. To crush ingredients such as mint or citrus fruit in order to release flavors and oils. That is to muddle, right? Makes sense. Term to describe a drink, typically an unmixed single spirit served straight from the bottle. Served neat, right? Often used for, so these are mixing methods, the next few. Often used for drinks on the rocks, also known as the pouring method. That was the build, right? How about used for cocktails with 2 or more easily blended ingredients that need to be chilled? The stir. And what about one that's used for drinks that contain sugar, cream, or other ingredients that do not readily mix with spirits? That is the shake. And a variation on the shake method recommended to prevent foaming would be
Roll.
the roll. And a Bloody Mary is supposed to go through the roll. Shaking without ice is what?
Dry.
The dry shake. Another nickname of mine in high school. Best procedure to use when processing frozen drinks or drinks made with solid fruit.
Mix.
Yeah, a blend, right? A blender.
Blend. Oops.
That's it. That's the bank for chapters 11 and 12. So you see you don't get anything from chapter 12 in here. How do we feel? Lots of little memorization in there. You'll probably get only a couple of those questions, but I would be ready for a calibogus or one of those kind of, everyone gets a syllabub. It's kind of strange, but you probably get you probably get one of those and a couple easier ones, or ones that are more applicable, I should say. Guys, that's all I have for today. I'm going to send this out so you can review it a few times in the car, because this is a fairly quick recording, probably 30, 40 minutes, right? Do we have any questions on anything? I appreciate everyone's time. I know it's a kind of crazy time right now. We're just a week out from Christmas. This is happening during Hanukkah. There's a lot going on. So I appreciate the time. And we'll see you guys in 3 weeks, hopefully at the mega review or a couple days after that. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or anything, just let me know. But start living on that course portal every day that you can. Any chance you have a couple extra minutes, or if you're waiting for a buyer or whatnot, pull it up. Start doing flashcards.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks, John.